This podcast is proud to be part of the TalkSport Fan Network.
TalkSport. Powered by fans.
Podcast. So, Steve, thank you very much for joining us.
Hi, Craig. Thank you for having me on your wonderful podcast. Looking forward to talking about the mighty O's and the fine Blues.
Indeed, I think it's going to be an interesting season afoot for both of us for different reasons, which we'll go into shortly. But tell us a little bit about the podcast. You know, how did you come about? The name, the Orient Outlook. How did all that happen? And how long have you been going?
We've been going 10 years now. So we celebrated our 10th anniversary about a month ago, which is outrageous, quite frankly. And it all started about 10.5 years ago. I had the idea as podcasts were becoming kind of more prevalent in like the modern world, and more football clubs were having them, and more fan media was happening. And that season, Orient were doing particularly well. And I remember vividly, like we beat Colchester 2-1, and we got two fanzines, or had two fanzines at that time, the Orienteer and Pandemonium. And I remember after that game just buzzing, read both fanzines, which came out like on a monthly basis, and I just thought, what else is there for me to consume as an Orient fan at that point? So that night I had dinner with a good friend, Paul Levy, who is the co-host of The Outlook, and said, mate, we talk about Orient a lot. Why not just do a podcast? And Paul was like, what would you talk about? Nothing ever happens at Orient. Like how would we fill like an hour? And so we kind of sat on it, went to the playoff final that summer against Rotherham, where we were 2-0 up at half time, cruising into the championship. At nightmare second half, saw us finish 2-2, a penalty shootout, which we lost. And then over that summer, I think two big things happened. One, in the space of about 2 weeks, 3 other Orient podcasts all started. And we were going, if we're ever going to do it, we need to kind of get it off the ground now. And then also Barry Hearn sold the club to an Italian guy who was loaded and who promised the world and delivered kind of 3 or 4 years of absolute hell. So we started the pod. We knew we wanted to have Orient in the title, so it was always going to be the Orient something podcast. And then we were like, let's call it the O podcast. So Orient followed by another word that began with O. And then we kind of settled. It's amazing how many words you go through to find Outlook in the dictionary when you're looking at O. So we got Outlook, Orient Outlook, and then we had an email address, orientoutlook@outlook.com, which suited well. And then podcast got off the ground. It was a big success really early on. I think one of the things we want to do is engage fans massively, because I always thought if I'm just talking to Paul and we're just talking about our views, it's going to get very old very quickly. So I feel we've done a real good job at engaging the fan base. So we have such a loyal fan base of listeners. It's amazing, really, and we engage with them all the time around a new signing, a new contract, a new kit, pre-match, post-match. All about engaging that fan base and getting many views as you can on social media. And in the last 10 years, I mean, you couldn't have picked kind of a better time to start an Orient podcast. We've seen 2 championship winning seasons. We've seen 2 relegations. We've seen a man almost take the club into abomination. We've seen a new board come in. We've seen players who have expected the world of and got nothing back. We've seen players come in with little fanfare and have been amazing. We've obviously witnessed Justin Edinburgh passing away, which was a dreadful couple of weeks just after winning the National League. So we've seen it all really in the space of 10 years. It's been an eventful 10 years. From thinking we couldn't fill half an hour fortnightly, we struggled to fill an hour weekly in terms of keeping it down. And it's just been amazing. You kind of get recognised around the ground. We've had the privilege of interviewing, like yourselves, ex-players, managers. We've had the board, the chairman, like in our houses. It's been a very strange 10 years, but I wouldn't have changed it for the world. And it's been amazing to comment on it. And I guess it's like a massive now historical kind of thing, the pod. Like anyone can go back to episode 1, which was recorded over 10 years ago, and you can follow the trail through. And as we sit here tonight, we're on episode, by the time this goes out, it'll be episode 361. So we've chronicled quite a journey with Leyton on, I think it's fair to say.
We've done 40. This is our 14th season as Tilton Talk, but
Wow.
it's again, chatting to the Reading guys, it's such a similar journey for us as football
Mm.
clubs. Having owners that promise the world and give you absolutely nothing, and very very similar. We've been close to going out of business on a couple of occasions. Been saved first time by David Sullivan and what was David Gold.
Mm.
Sold to Carson Young, won the cup, and then looked down since then. And unfortunately, then ending up with that relegation at the end of last season. But Birmingham, I think it's fair to say, is on the rise again. That's the way we want to look at it, and formed a phenomenal squad. We'll go into shortly, and looking forward to a continued improvement throughout the season and seeing what we can do. So, I mean, it's been a while since we played each other, and it struck me really when I went back through the history of just how far back it has actually been. And I mean, firstly, 2002, last time we played each other. It's a League Cup game, which Birmingham did go on to win 3-2. So it was a close game. But then prior to that, we go back to actually the last season that Birmingham were in the third tier of football. And it was during our Barry Fry years, played during the auto windscreens trophy. And as it was, the old League Two at the time. Obviously, we're successful with that auto windscreen shield trophy that particular year, and also the promotion out of the league. So it's been a while since we've played each other. Similar journeys by the sounds of it, though, from a fan's perspective. So
Mm.
I look back at past 5 games, and they've been close, really. In terms of scorelines, they have been close. Not pleasant reading, unfortunately, for an Orient fan, no, because
Ah.
4 wins for Birmingham and just a 1 for Orient during the past 5 games. All have been, no, close. Either 2-1s or 3-2s. Then we had 1-2-0 during that period. So there's only one time that we've shut you out.
Mm.
So no, it's going to make for an interesting game at the weekend. And so tell us, in terms of the way things are with yourselves at the moment, what are your expectations for the season? And from the current squad, who should Birmingham look out for? Where's your danger points? And you don't normally say, but have you got any weak points we can look out for?
I mean, last season was our first season back in League Two for the first time in 9 years, and it was quite a good season. We finished 11th, but it was quite disappointing actually. When you look back on it, there was a kind of an opportunity there to do a playoff push that we didn't really capitalise on. So last season 11th, it was undramatic and fairly unspectacular. Like we knew we weren't going to go down fairly early on, and the kind of top 5 had pulled away by such a large margin. There's only 6th place to really play for, but we look good. We tend to play better against the teams who want to play us. So if you want to come and play a pass and move and press against us, I think we can match most teams, or did do last season in League One. It's the teams who like to rough up a bit who kind of got to us more. And it did take us a bit of time to settle down in League One. So last season, we opened our season away to Charlton, who'd just been relegated. So similar to what's happening this season. So we had Charlton away, then Portsmouth at home. That was a really difficult game, followed by Wickham away and then Blackpool away. So we had a really difficult start. So it took us a while to adjust last season. And this season, I don't know how much you know, but our first 3 games of Bolton at home, Charlton away, Birmingham at home. So 3 of the teams who are being tipped to be fairly successful this season. So I guess depending on what way you look at it, that might be a blessing or a disguise, right? Because there's been a lot of turnover at all those clubs. I know Birmingham have had a very, very big turnover, new manager, lots of high-profile new players. So it might actually be a good time to play Birmingham while they're gelling, depending on what way you look at it. Or it might be a terrible time to play Birmingham, where it's going to be. So it's really difficult to call in terms of new season and kind of expectations. I think anything more than 11th, I'll be really happy with. I mean, the depth of League One this season is ridiculous. Last season it was fairly open, and you kind of had a fair inkling of who might go up. And in kind of the playoff places could have been anyone's. But I mean, this season you look at kind of 10 teams and you think all those teams could make a serious push. Obviously, you've got yourselves, Huddersfield, Charlton, Rotherham, who I think will do exceptionally well under Steve Evans. So the teams have come down are really strong. And also, I think the teams that have come up are really strong as well in terms of Wrexham. I mean, it could take some stopping if they get ahead of momentum behind them in this league. Stockport have done really well. And then you've got Posh, Barnsley, Bolton, teams who are always up and around. They just can't make it over the final hurdle. So I think it's going to be difficult. So for me, anything around 11th, maybe higher, I'd take. I'd maybe probably even take 15th place at this moment in time, considering how strong I think the league's going to be. But in terms of our danger men, I think there's two who spring to mind when you ask me about danger men. We've got Dan Adjei, who we signed from Crewe last season, who suffered terribly of injuries actually and barely played, but when he did, he scored goals fairly easily. Real good player, powerhouse up front, can play in the middle as a nine, which is where we played him, but can also play on the left or on the right hand side. He was exceptional in the games he got and the run in the team he got. He got injured in pre-season, come back in December, scored about 6 or 7 goals in the same amount of games, and then got injured again. And then we kind of saw him at the back end of the season come back. So I think if we can keep him fit, and so far, fingers crossed, at this point of pre-season, he's fit
Yep.
and ready to go. I think he'd be massive for us if we can keep him fit. I'd say he'd get between 15 and 20 goals in a full season. So hoping for big things from him. And another danger guy who I hadn't heard of at all until January was a young Irish winger who we got from Fulham called Ollie O'Neill, who when we signed him, I was a bit like, I've never heard of this bloke, but has come in and taken to League One football exceptionally well. I think he scored 5 goals in about 15 games. Dangerous player, likes to take players on the left, will beat players, can half strike a football as well, scored some amazing goals. So he's a player I'm really excited for as well. And another player who hopefully will be fit and obviously played at Birmingham City. He's just come in my head. Jordan Graham. So Jordan
Really?
Graham joined us, was exceptional for the first kind of 2 months of the season. Took him a while to get fit once he joined us. So we didn't see him in the first 5 or 6 games last season. But once he kind of got going, he had League One defences on toast, looked really strong. And unfortunately, got a season-ending injury in early October last season away to Burton, which is a real shame because had he been fit all season, I think, we may have finished higher than 11th. So we've got a real good forward three if they're all fit and firing, and hopefully they will be by the time we play you. In defence, we've signed Jack Simpson, who was released from Cardiff, who is a Championship defender, but due to circumstances has ended up at Leyton Orient, who I think could be a big, big player for us. And we've also signed Lewis Warrington on a free from Everton, recently released young player, 21-year-old, who looks like he could be a very, very good player. Again, alongside Ethan Galbraith, who we signed from Man United last season, and Jordan Brown, who make up a tenacious three in the centre of midfield. So we've got Dangerman, hopefully, all over the park. So as I talk this and say this, I'm actually getting more and more excited about the season. Because if we can keep all those players fit, it could be a real good season. It could be an exceptional game for us. But I guess, it's very hard to keep all your best 11 fit and
We
strong. And
always,
very rarely does that work out.
you always wish to keep your main ones together, don't you? It's plain and simple.
Yeah.
If you can field your strongest team, everybody's always happy. It's those times when you look at it and think, oh God, we're weak here. Oh yeah, we've lost that person. Now we're in trouble. And every team goes through it. I mean, you've mentioned your signings there, but when I look at what Birmingham have done this season so far, and obviously we're still within the window, so things can still change. But the new manager coming in Chris Davies, has just set the stall out, which is he wants basically two people for every single position. And those people have got to be equal in terms of ability, equal in terms of tenacity and fighting to be in that starting 11, which is something that when I go back over the years, we probably haven't had at Birmingham. And there's been a downfall of ours, despite the fact that we've had some great players. Jordan Graham being one of those players who is a true gentleman when he was at the club. I had the privilege of meeting him at the Player Awards. And he was, always open to coming and speaking. And it'd be good to catch up and see, hopefully he doesn't come and tear us to shreds when we do play each other. We got some, players that have overlapped in the past. Again, quite tough because of the gap that we've had between the clubs in terms of the years and the seasons that we've played each other. So just a little bit of a challenge for you. You've mentioned one already, all right? So I'll give you a head start. You've already mentioned one in Jordan Graham, being a player that has represented both Orient and Birmingham. So my question is, can you name three others going back over the years? And I'm not going to lie, I found it tough, and some of the names, yeah, they're tedious, but you might get
Uh,
it.
there's two who leap out straight away, who I don't even need to think about. Darren Purse,
You
obviously the
know,
Orient boy, done very well at Birmingham, leaps out. Ricky Otto leaps out as well. We loved Ricky Otto and Darren Purse. It was heart-wrenching, even at the young age of 11 or 12, however old I was. It was wrenching to watch Ricky Otto go. Jordan Graham was an absolute fluke. It wasn't until I was talking about him and I thought, oh, actually, he's a Birmingham lad. Um, a fourth one, did Shane Lowry play for Birmingham? Or Gary Barnett play for Birmingham?
I did indeed, yeah. Shane Lowry.
Oh,
Uh,
yes.
there's those, and I mean to give you a few others. Goalkeeper Adam Legdensons. I
Oh, of course,
struggled
Adam
pronouncing that
Lynch.
one. Um,
Yeah.
Sam Oji, obviously represented both clubs.
Oh, of course, yes.
Mentioned Jordan Graham already. Going back over the years, Neil Ardley, or Ardley, as most people
Ah, yes, yeah,
know.
yeah.
Going back a little bit further again, Peter Tilt. Um,
Okay.
and then just two more that I could find: Steve Castle and
Oh, of course he did. I should have got
Ian
that one. I
Hendon,
should have got Steve
as well
Castle.
as the final one. But I mean, it's interesting you mentioned Darren Person and Ricky Otto. Um, both friends of Tilton Talk actually, and have been on, and they are fantastic speakers of the game. And I had again the privilege of meeting Darren for a meet and greet. And his drive and passion for the game is still phenomenal. I mean, working as he has been at Cardiff and keeping involved with the game. Ricky, totally opposite. He's a pastor in Birmingham now, so he's really changed his ways. But such both of them gentle giants, really, and represented, like you say, both clubs and gave everything all the time. So it's a good little overlap, but a tedious link as well. Tedious link here. Ricky Otto, obviously, signed for Birmingham, was one of our most expensive signings when he first came. Also held a record of scoring 2 goals in his first game, which was phenomenal. However, one of them was in his own goal. So
Ah,
both of them actually, as a quiz question for those Birmingham fans out there will know, but yeah, he scored 2 on his debut. Both goals headers. First one, great one off a corner, but it was into his own goal, which went into the Tilton. And then he followed up in the second half by getting the equaliser in the game into the Tilton. So actually, there's not many players that can say debut, score 2, one for each team, but both into the same end. So it was great. The tedious link to that is in the manager at the time, which was Barry Fry. So what I managed to find out, just going back across the history again, was that whilst he hasn't been manager, and in fact we haven't had any managers that have overlapped between Orient and Birmingham across the years, but what we did have was Barry was our manager, and again friend of the show, proper funny guy, and he managed Birmingham, but played for Orient, I believe, on 2 separate occasions.
did.
So yeah, that's the only link in terms of management and playing styles that I could get between the clubs at any point. So tell us a little bit then about the upcoming game. So still very early in the season, we're still going to have 2 teams that, like you say, are going to be embedding. You've mentioned there's some of your key players to watch out for. How do you think it will be? Because with it being obviously so early in the season, and I think your first home game in the league when we play. So
No, we open our season at home to Bolton and then Charlton away, and then you're our third game. I think it's quite difficult at the moment as an Orient fan because Richie's been kind of changing the formation in some of the friendlies. So we normally play 4 at the back, 3 in the middle, in midfield, and then 3 up top, which goes into a 5 when defending with 2 wide men and 1 up top who chases down. Um, he started experimenting with the diamond in midfield, and he's hinted he wants to play 2 up top because he thinks Adji, in partnership with Charlie Kelman, who's come back to the club on loan for a season off QPR, he thinks they're both capable of getting into double digits this season. I don't necessarily disagree with, but he's trying to get them to form a partnership. So at the moment, as it stands, we're not quite sure what formation he's going to go with. He does like to kind of fool the opposition and fool the local media sometimes, where he says he's going to do one thing, and then you see a lineup and it's completely different to what he says he's going to do. So he might be playing devil's advocate. I think he'll start the season by doing his normal formation with 3 up top, with 2 wide and 1 in the middle. Jordan Graham's currently out, which might affect his thinking and his rationale behind that. I think by the time Birmingham City are due to visit, Jordan Graham, all being well, should be fit for Orient unless he picks up anything else, which might change his decision to play 3 up top. So what we do is we tend not to play long ball. So we tend to be patient and we tend to try and play football around teams. So I think what you find from Orient is very short passing. If they can't go forward, they'll go sideways or back to keep possession. And it's all about making the right passes, the right moves at the right time, which necessarily doesn't make for the most kind of attractive football at points, but it means you keep the ball, I guess, and knacker out the opposition. When we don't have possession, Richie likes a high press. And that's one of the things he really demands from his front to his back as well. So when he talks about defending, he likes defending from the front. So you'll see a team, hopefully, who come and are able to press you guys into kind of areas and winning possession by high back up the pitch. So I think it'll be a nice game of football, but a very, very difficult one for us. So I mentioned we had Portsmouth first home game of last season, and they came and absolutely trounced us 4-0. I think the occasion got to us. The size of the crowd got to us. We didn't actually play too badly, but they just capitalised on every error we made. Yeah. Portsmouth capitalised and got a goal out of it. So I think it might be a game of fine margins. But again, last season, the bigger teams who come to Brisbane Road for the most part, once we found our groove, beat Charlton 1-0, we beat Bolton, 1-0. Beat a lot of like the bigger teams 1-0, where we got a goal and just made it really hard for them to play against us. Beat Blackpool 1-0. So there's a lot of games where if we take the lead, we're actually quite hard to get the lead back from. Yeah. But it's very hard to look past Birmingham City this season. Like you said, I mean, the players Birmingham City have brought in just seem to be so much more of a high caliber than everyone else. And I've done a few kind of League One previews, and everyone is going. The second place team varies, right? So people have got either Huddersfield or Rotherham up from what I can make out as the top 2. Maybe Bolton sneak in there. But everyone as a top 1, everyone is saying Birmingham City. So I think it's actually going to be difficult for Birmingham City as a starting point. I think Birmingham will win the league, but I think they might not find their groove. I mean, last season, for example, League One, Cambridge were top after 3 games, Exeter were top after 4 games, 5 and 6. It wasn't until kind of the 10th, 15th games where it actually started taking a shape, which it actually stuck to. So I think it might take a while for Birmingham to actually kind of get ahead of the others, which I think might work in our favour for that game, because it's still quite an early days, the sun's shining, everyone's still expectations, and you can't kind of beginning of the season is quite hard to call and make out. And I think actually playing some of the harder teams might work in our favour in terms of like the levels we have to get to quite quickly. But I just think it'll be a really difficult game, but a great game nonetheless. It's always, although we haven't played you much, I'm well aware of how loud Birmingham City are as a fan base and the passion of the fan base behind Birmingham. I've got a lot of friends around Birmingham and the Solihull area, so I know kind of the dedication and the feeling behind Birmingham City and the momentum that's building, and it's kind of. It's going to be an electric ground, Brisbane Road. It only holds 9,200, and 1,200 of those will be Birmingham City fans. So it's going to be a loud game. I imagine it'll be a golden ticket for everyone in Birmingham that week, because it's such a small away attendance, I guess, compared to what you're used to.
They've already, tickets will be out on sale, and we've changed an away membership scheme this year to allow to make sure that we can get everybody there. But it's also, it's like you say, it's about how things progress and build up. We started that season with a sellout crowd at St Andrews. Did I honestly think that we would go into that 27,000 crowd And I'm like,
Mm.
"No, never in a million years. We're not going to do it." But the expectation of the fans this year has just changed. Everybody's excited. It's a strange feeling for a team to be relegated and to feel so optimistic. Not only now, but as the season ended, it was just very, very, very strange. But the new owners have stuck to their word. They have backed us. Like you say, they've brought in the caliber of player that we hope is not just a Division One player, but they are players that can take us back into the Championship and then, hold their own in the Championship to build on. Love nothing more than to emulate what Ipswich did, but we do know, and I hold no grudge in saying it's going to be a tough season. Every team we play, it's an FA Cup final to them.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can continue with the fine run of form and fine football, really, that we've seen from Chris Davies during pre-season, which some people take it as a pinch of salt, but actually it's been really nice to watch. We've passed the ball around well. We've had wingers that are no worries whatsoever in bombing forwards and having a go, whipping in a ball. We've signed the League One top goal scorer from the past 2 seasons in Alfie May. It's that sort of thing. And also, I should say, from under the noses of Huddersfield. So it's nice to be in a position where also we've got a player who's not afraid to get his foot stuck in, and he's a poacher. He will score goals. He has done during pre-season. And, I hope he can get 20 plus this season to take us forward. So I'm looking forward to the game. It's going to be a good one. Like you say, raucous following from Birmingham. Always is. Mm-hmm. And they will sell it out. There is absolutely no doubt in it.
Oh, easy. Yeah.
They'll be loud. They'll be proud. You'll know they're there. They'll make sure they're backing the team to the hilt. So we get to that awkward point then now where I start. Give me your prediction. So, when we play each other, what's the result going to be? And then also, where do you think you will be at the end of the season? So I know you've mentioned there how everybody is saying Birmingham will be top. Well, I won't. I'd love them to win the league, but I won't predict it. It's too early.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
But
I don't blame you.
You'll end up, and what do you think the result will be when we do play each other?
I've got us. I had to. We got asked to kind of do our predictions for a Stevenage podcast. So I had Orient coming at 12th, but I really do think Orient could end up anywhere between 8th and 17th. It could literally. There's a group of teams in the middle, and I said this the other day on another podcast. I think some of the bigger teams everyone is tipping won't quite make it. So I've got a feeling Charlton won't be. Everyone's thinking Charlton will be around the playoffs. I think they might miss out, and I think a few big clubs like your Barnsleys and your Stockports might miss out. Yeah. But I think that might make a gap for 1 or 2 to go in. I think Bristol Rovers have been very shrewd in the transfer market. And also Exeter and Lincoln had really strong finishes to the season. So I think it's going to be, there might be a few surprises in there. So I've got us at 12th, but it could be, as I say, anywhere, I think, around there. I would personally take, like I said, anywhere from 10th to 15th would do me. In terms of the game against you, I know better than to go on an opposition podcast and predict the win.
No, predict it. If you think it's going to happen, you predict it. I did it times last season.
Do you know what? I think it might be a 1-1 or 2-1 Birmingham City. I think Birmingham might just be too strong on this, and I think we've been fairly lucky. Again, don't want to say this, but Alfie May didn't score last season against Leyton Orient. So Charlton beat us 1-0 on the first game of the season last season, where he made his home debut, and he should have got one, and he didn't. And then when we played Charlton at home on Boxing Day, we beat them 1-0. So Alfie May is probably due a goal against Leyton Orient. So it's just about how long we can keep Alfie May out in that one. But I'll say 1-0 because I think Adji. All Adji needs is one chance. I think Adji might be a bit of a revelation in the season if we can keep him fit. So I'll say a very, very optimistic 1-1, very optimistic 1-1 with my toes and fingers crossed.
I mean, it's so hard for me to even think about predicting what's going to happen in this league because we just really, really don't know. If we hit the ground running, we can go and spank teams. But I think we'll find it tough. My prediction, funnily enough, was to just scrape and literally scrape a 1-0.
Mm,
And I'll stick with that in terms of the way that I think it'll be, because we are going to be hard to beat, but then also teams are going to be very hard to break down, and they're going to put a proverbial brick wall in front of us to stop us.
yeah.
Because at the end of the day, if you stop a team from scoring but go and sneak one yourself, you're always getting the 3 points, and that's the way I can see it going in this league. And I think you're right. I'll be very, very, very surprised if we come out sprinting from the blocks to start off with. There's going to be a lot of nervousness. There's going to be a lot of people looking and thinking, yeah, what I mean, this is the time to play them, and wanting to come and attack. What I do believe will happen, from what you said, is it will be very open.
Mm.
And an open game always makes for a good game. So I'll stick with my 1-0. In terms of formation, couldn't tell you what Chris Davis is going to do,
Yeah.
because there hasn't been one game during pre-season where the team has stayed the same. Really, over to yourself now, just for some final words, what Birmingham fans should look out for. And of course, one major question that I haven't asked is, where should they drink before the game?
There's loads of places when you come out of Leyton Station, you turn right and you'll be met with various bars. I mean, I've not been to Leyton High Street since the season ended, and it always seems to have a few new bars open up. There's a few good ones as you walk down. Away fans will be welcome in most places, I would say. So whatever takes your fancy, you got your choice from standard pubs to wine bars to Portuguese restaurants to pizza places. It's a very diverse high street, Leyton High Street, and obviously next to Stratford as well. Loads of bars in Stratford, which is only one stop away on the Central Line as well. I think the things to look out for in the ground. I mean, last time I think we visited was 2002, so we got flats on every corner of the ground, so you'll be able to see the flats that you've never seen before. And if anyone was watching Sky Sports News earlier in the day, Orient launched their solar panels today. So we've not seen them yet, but there's solar panels on two sides of the ground, which are brand new and environmentally efficient and money saving. So those would be something that we'll be looking out for the first time early this season. But it's quite an old school ground, like I guess maybe a bit like St Andrews, where there are some modern stands, but the kind of feeling is an old school football ground, which I think you can't really beat.
You cannot beat.
Um, you can't really beat that feeling. But you'll be made to feel very welcome. Orient fans are very welcoming. I just got to say, I do wish you luck for the best of the season. Birmingham City should be nowhere near League One. You should be, you know, looking at the other end of the football spectrum. And I wish you well. Great owners, great football club, and I hope you get out of the division sooner rather than later. But I hope that when we play you, you go back to the Midlands, maybe not too happy.
It's funny because I always end by saying that I wish you every well and every team, the best for the season, but play your worst game when you play us on two occasions.
Yeah.
That's what But no, I think we're all looking forward to it. It's another ground that some fans have never been to, so I'll be ticking it off the list. And yeah, no doubt there will be a little bit of extra business to those pubs and restaurants in and around the area before the game. So thank you again, Steve, for joining us. Really appreciate your time and input. Here's to a great game. And I'll sign off as always by just saying good luck and keep right on.